Hey everyone, it's Willow here. This is a look at the area of consistency and discipline. Discipline doesn't sound like a particularly enticing word, does it? Discipline reminds me of being at school. But discipline is actually directly linked with freedom. And I'll explain what I mean by that just in a moment, after I consider whether I need to close that bag because it's starting to rain. I think we're going to risk it. There might even be a rainbow. Wouldn't that be amazing? Consistency is what I have found in the practice of shifting from the false self into the aligned natural state of who we are. Consistency I have found to be really, really helpful. So there have been some breakthroughs that I've had in my self-awareness over the years that have made a massive difference in how I feel, but more than that, in the relationship with myself and the actual engagement with myself. That shift from being in the false state of the false self, the false experience of the false identity, and shifting into the actual experience of who we are that's always been there. It was there when we were a child, but we've just switched off from that. And these breakthroughs that I've had over the years have come with an invitation to be consistent with them. So what are some of the examples of that? Do I want to start there? Value is one, my self-value. Let's start there. One of the greatest shifts that we make in our journey of coming into ownership of our identity is recognizing our self-value. And what can happen when yes, this is a good place to start. What can happen when we are stuck in the state of our false identity. In other words, when we are trying to be someone that we're not in order to fit in. We're trying to be accepted by those around us. And when we're young and when we're a child, we have to do that because we risk, in our programming, we risk being pushed out of the family unit if we're not accepted. And as a child, we don't have any choice but to conform. But what happens, as we know, is when we get into adults, if we're trying to conform by being someone that we're not, then our life is a misery. So this shift into alignment with what's real in us takes consistency. It takes practice, which is related to discipline, and I'll come to that in a moment. Self-value, the shift into my own self-value, was a massive breakthrough for me. So in my earlier days, in my earlier business practice, I was running my false identity and trying to pursue a life that actually wasn't right for me. And when I finally got to where I was trying to get to, when I made all the money and had all the success in business, and I created this world around me, I realized I didn't want to be there. And it wasn't until I started to tune into what my high sensory gifts were and what I was actually naturally good at, my ability to facilitate, my ability to be able to help others see the truth and purpose in themselves, and how I can read that. Once I started to really explore that and take ownership of that, I suddenly realized what my self-value was. I had an innate value. Once I got that piece, there was this shift in me. Everything went into this, okay, I feel the presence of myself. I feel the reality of myself. I feel the state of myself. That takes consistency. So whatever version of that is for you, whatever your high sensory abilities and skills are, the embrace of that and the engagement with that takes, it involves the discipline of engaging with that energetic experience. So in other words, it's no good if we have a breakthrough around our value and think, wow, I'm actually really good at doing this, isn't that amazing? And then we don't think about it again. That's not going to work. What we're actually doing is we're retraining ourselves to align with the realities of who we are. And that's what I mean by this discipline. And that's why it's linked with freedom. Because when we really engage with these realities in ourselves, that's when we start to really experience the truth and the peace and the alignment and the meaning that we're all looking for. And that's why nature it shows us when we're not in alignment. We feel weird. We don't feel connected. We don't feel like ourselves, and that's what leads into depression and self-rejection and self-doubt. It's nature saying, "Hey, that's not the way." And when we do engage and when we do embrace these pieces, then we feel ourselves. So self-value was a massive one for me. Self-love was another huge one. In my relationship with myself, how am I treating myself? So in the old days, when I was in conflict with myself, I was constantly beating myself up to be better at this, to blindly follow that path because I was told that that's the way I should be. And when I shifted into a place of embrace and curiosity again, and thinking, well, actually, who am I, and what do I know about myself to be real? What do I know about myself to be real? Then this container of self-love formed around me. And then I started to practice that. There became consistency around that, a check-in regularly during the day. How am I being towards myself? How am I treating myself right now? Am I treating myself with love and care and attention? Or am I berating myself in my mind? Am I in conflict with myself? So self-love was another massive one for me. So my invitation is to consider this for yourself, to consider what are the areas for you that feel out of alignment. Do you feel out of alignment in your business or in your career, in your work? Do you feel out of alignment in your relationships? Do you feel out of alignment in the relationship with yourself? Whatever it may be for you, there's going to be a blindingly obvious door you need to walk through, which could be about self-acceptance. It could be about vulnerability in relationships. It could be about being honest about what you really want to do in your work. It's all related with self-love and self-value and having the courage to be vulnerable enough to meet with the truth of who we are in whatever area of life keeps giving us feedback that we're not being real. It keeps feeding us back some kind of pain or discomfort. Life is inviting us to feel into the realities of what's actually occurring, and are we aligning with that? And when we are, we will feel this breakthrough. And when that happens, that is when we need to start being consistent about that, because we will get the warning once, and then we'll get it again, then we'll get it again, then we'll get it again. So what we can do is actually realize that we keep falling into the same hole, and eventually we stop walking down the road that's got the hole in it. And that's when we start to truly embrace with the truth of who we are. We make that shift into our true identity. And it takes practice with anything. It takes consistency and it takes practice. So I hope this has been helpful, and I hope it's encouraging you to consider these areas where you're being invited to go a bit deeper and to find the peace that's being offered to you, and then to bring that into your daily practice, your daily check-in, and then to find consistency, the discipline around that, and then the freedom that will bring you. Thanks for listening. See you next time.